time around. Last time he was assassination, but I think this pirate specialization is going to be a lot more effective for the team of Noble.
Yeah, Roasty's going to be very tanky against this team. Super Rejects is going to have to punish them. Jamili, Gorecki, they can sit back. They can play it a little bit patiently, just keep up the consistent pressure while Roasty's really makes a lot of plays. Going to have a lot of stuns with that pistol stun. Going to have the gouges to crowd control Envious as well as the blind. Super Rejects is going to have to do a great job defensively, and I think they're going to be up for the task.
All right, Roasties is the immediate target for the Super Rejects as Gorecki had to trade out an Ironbark early on from the result of Envious stunning Roasties in the center of the map. Now Jamili and Roasties are trying to lead an attack towards Smexen, reaching his health down to 50%. Smexen jumping back to the pillar for now. Thugonomics firing Chaos Bolts on all cylinders. Roasties ducking behind the pillar. This is going to be a bit of a wizard battle as Smexen and Thugonomics, if the opposing team stands in the open for too long against Thugonomics, they simply die. They can't play in the midfield. Like, for example, right here, Jamili has lost almost half of his health already from just spending a few seconds in the open, so he immediately has to get back to the box in line of sight. And I do expect Roasties and Jamili to try and set up these single-target burst moments deeper into dampening, but they need to be careful not to die before that point.
Yeah, Roasties using his Cloak of Shadows, and this is what is so scary. This is Apotheosis, but a big swap over on Envious. He already trinketed out of the blind. Doesn't have another trinket available. Stun into Earthshock. Nice death ball coming in from Thugonomics to keep Envious up. That was a Guardian Spirit, though. So that's a big victory there for Noble, getting the trinket, getting Guardian Spirit. If they can get one more setup like that, it's going to be very scary for Envious. But Roasties has already used that Plunder Armor.
Yeah, Envious has an ability called Fade, which he can immune everything hitting him. So the next time that they set up an attack on him, he's going to have to use that before he gets stunned. So he's going to have to keep his eyes glued onto Roasties, as he will be the one to initiate that. Thugonomics firing out some Chaos Bolts. Not really finding too much damage off the back of it just yet. And it does look like they're trying to go after Gorecki. They've managed to catch him in a chastise, but not enough damage. Nice mind control, pulling Gorecki back into center field. Gorecki immediately displacing back to the pillar, having to hide away from the devastating Thugonomics.
Yeah, this is so scary about the compositions that Super Rejects has. Is that Apotheosis, Envious being able to spam out the smites, as well as get out those stuns, keeping anyone from Noble still, so Thugonomics and Smexen can kind of tee off all that damage. But here's another swap over onto Envious. I don't think Jamili's going to be there for any sort of significant damage. Envious is going to be completely fine. Roasty's not able to find any sort of pressure. There's a stun on Roasty's now. Big pressure. Second trinket coming out of Roasty's. Now he could be in big trouble. No Cloak of Shadows as well. Big damage connecting from both teams. But you can see Noble completely on the back foot once again.
I mean, Super Rejects are dominating right now. I'm not sure if Gorecki can even handle this. They're choking. Jamili on 5%. Ironbark barely saves him. I know Gorecki loves to play greedy with defensive cooldowns and hold them into the last second, but that was so close. If another mistake happens like that later, or another greedy play like that happens into dampening, it's just going to be the end of the match. Super Rejects still dominating. Everybody low health. Gorecki trying to sit behind the pillar. Thugonomics getting stunned away as Roasties is trying to peel for his team, but Smexen is hunting down Jamili in an LE 1v1 on the pillar. Jamili not winning this exchange. He's trying to kite across the map back to Gorecki, but he gets knocked into center field. Thugonomics is lining up a Chaos Bolt. Jamili denies it. Jamili still just trying to retreat away, but Envious mind controls him. He could drop it at the end of the Chaos Bolt. No, Chaos Bolt going to be used onto Roasties instead. Jamili does finally make it back to his healer Gorecki, but that was a long trek across such a small distance.
Yeah, it's hard for Noble in this position. Like, if they want to do these hit and run strategies, I feel like that really plays into the advantages Super Rejects have. Anytime Envious, has his Ray of Hope, has his Serenity, has his Chastise, I feel like they're in the winning position. So Noble, I feel like they have to kind of overwhelm with pressure, and that's why I don't really like the Resto Druid in this pick. Stun now over on Roasties. Smexen looking for some damage. Ironbark can be maybe saving Roasties here. He has to use the Cloak of Shadows, so no Cloak of Shadows available for him. He does have the Plunder Armor. I think he has his blind up as well, so maybe Noble can make an opportunity here. Apotheosis is going to be used by Envious. He's spamming out the smites over and over. They want to get aggressive. They want to have those Chastise stuns available. Gouge now on the Thugonomics. You can see Gorecki and Jamili looking for some CC, looking for some damage. Nice little swap here over on the Smexen. Hex onto Envious. He gets out of that, though, quite easily. I believe that was the Voodoo Totem, so looks like Smexen's going to be completely fine.
We saw in the European region when Zuniaki played Holy Priest into the Outlaw Ellie, the Outlaw Ellie just switched to him over and over and eventually killed him. So I'm curious if Roasties and Jamili are going to keep to that strategy, or if they're just going to focus on defense and surviving. It was obviously a different composition. He wasn't playing with a Destro Warlock and an Ellie Shaman. He was playing with a Hunter and a Feral. well, so it could just be more risky to do it. This composition from the Super Reject seems to be well-rounded to deny Noble any aggressive pressure. Jamili trying to line up some burst with Stormkeeper, but not finding too much damage just yet, and Roasties is the one that's feeling the brunt of this exchange as Smexen forces him back.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. They've been able to keep Roasties at bay for so much of this matchup, not able to get that uptime and crowd control that he really needs. Going to be charging in, blinding up Envious. Envious is going to be happy to sit it right now. Looks like Roasties wants to go for that follow-up sap. Jamili is the one that's in most of the trouble. If you look at mana, Gorecki at around 50%. Actually going for a drink right now, so this is a good opportunity for Noble to maybe get ahead on mana. Smexen getting a little bit low, but Envious sitting all of that crowd control.
All right, Gorecki getting feared in the middle of the map as he tried to set up an aggressive play. Now getting stun locked in the open. Ice Fury and Chaos Bolts are flying. Gorecki Barkskins to deny the kill. Immediately retreating back behind the pillar. Roasty's trying to lead the charge for now, stunning up Thugonomics, stealing him away. Mana in favor of Envious. However, later into Dampening, it will become harder to predict who is actually going to win, as Rush Druid and Holy Priest both have the best mana regeneration in the game. Smexen still just lining up damage on Roasty. Thugonomics getting gouged away. Roasty's using that Tricks of the Trade, but an immediate life grip will save Smexen. Chaos Bolt connects. Jamili knocks Thugonomics away. It lands a Voodoo Totem to remove that Holy Ward from Envious, so they could make a swap pretty soon to him. I see an Iron Bark used onto Jamili during this stun lock combo from Envious, and he's dangerously low. Immediately retreating back behind the pillar. Now they've caught Roasties out. They're trying to burst him down and force at least a Cloak of Shadows from this exchange. Still targeting down Jamili as well. At this pace, though, I feel like Noble are losing opportunities. There's no real openings for them.
Yeah, I feel like the longer they sit back and kind of just wait for, you know, hit and runs every 30 seconds, it's not a winning strategy. Envious gets to comfortably sit back, spam smites, man heals, reset all his cooldowns. He's going to be completely fine. You can see Gorecki trying to make an offensive push. He actually gets feared. Beautiful fear from Thugonomics. Now Jamili and Roasty's both going to be in trouble. Jamili trinketing, wants to get behind the pillar, doesn't want to take any of that damage from Thugonomics and Smexen here. Roasty's retreating as well, as Gorecki's on the opposite side of the map. He's going to have to reconnect with his team, but he used the displace offensively, gets in bear, manages to reconnect to both Jamili and Roasties, and once again, Noble completely in a defensive position.
Ooh, that was a big Earthshock crit onto Gorecki. Now Roasty's getting stunned in the middle of the map. That's going to be a Trinket, Cloak of Shadows. Could have easily gone down at that point. Now Gorecki with no Trinket and Roasties with no Trinket. This is going to be a fragile situation for Noble to keep pushing forward. They've managed to at least tie on mana. Another Voodoo Totem to remove that Holy Ward from Envious. He does currently have Apotheosis activated, which allows him to generate Chastise stuns more frequently, as we see one currently active on Roasties, holding him in position for both Smexen and Thugonomics to free cast. Gorecki with a well-timed Iron Bark, though, deflected a lot of that damage. Jamili healing himself behind the pillar with Healing Surge, trying to be self-sufficient, so Gorecki doesn't need to spend so much mana, but a Rain of Fire from Thugonomics is forcing Jamili and Gorecki to reposition away from the pillar, which could allow Smexen some opportunity to capitalize on damage, but they do finally set up a swap on Envious, immediately get the Trinket fade. These are the kind of swaps that I want to see from the team of Noble.
Yeah, that's exactly what they need to do. And now Roasties just set himself up in a beautiful position where he still has the Plunder armor available to take down Envious. If they get a big swap over onto Envious, no Trinket available, they can, it's going to be really up to Thugonomics and Smexen to keep him alive. If they don't peel like crazy, it's going to be very scary for Envious in that spot. We're at around 20% dampening right now. Envious still slight mana lead. I think it's unlikely Gorecki's going to be able to find a drink in this matchup against the Ellie Shaman and the Destro Warlock, but maybe. This is just, once again, gone into kind of a stalemate where Noble is behind the pillar. They're just going to be looking for a reset, looking for some damage. Envious probably realizing he's going to be in trouble, going to be playing very, very safely.
Yeah, I want to see if Jamili, Roasties, and Gorecki can triple crowd control and swap to Envious. There's the stun lock on Envious, but they need to deny the fears. Gorecki denies the fears with a bash. A Wincher on Smexen to deny the heals. Envious could easily fall if they time another stun, but they don't have it. Guardian is going to save Envious. He'll easily recover. Now Gorecki and Jamili will be on the back foot from this aggressive push. They spent just even a matter of seconds in the open and had to use almost their entire defensive arsenal to deal with the pressure from Thugonomics.
Yeah, they just didn't have the follow-up damage for Envious, didn't have the Earthshocks done. Guardian was easily traded out, and Envious can be completely fine. Now Smexen taking a little bit of damage. You can see Jamili casting out the Ice Fury, but unfortunately, Smexen's going to be line of sighting that completely fine. Smexen casts out the Stormkeeper, looking for that thunder damage on all three members of Noble. There's a stun on a Gorecki once again. Roasty's going to be charging in, looking for the blind on Envious. Actually, it's a full blind. Maybe an opportunity here for Noble to find some damage, but Thugonomics going to be using that unending resolve as sort of an offense right here. Actually, maybe looking to just stop some of this damage that's incoming. Big burst coming in from both Jamili and Roasties. Tricks of the trade from that Outlaw Rogue makes that Elemental Shaman so strong.
See a double Immortal Coil from Thugonomics. This is when he really wants to get his damage rolling, but Smexen shuts him down with the Wind Shear and a Voodoo Totem. That was really good peels from Smexen during the highest burst potential for Thugonomics. Gorecki just quivering behind the pillar as dampening starts to ramp up higher and higher. His hots aren't going to be enough to sustain his team. He gets caught in the open. He is in bear form, though. Predicting that he would get stunned crossing the map was a smart decision, but a Chaos Bolt still connects. He's low. Jamilia's low. There's an Iron Bark available, but he's got 2 targets at low health. He's got to make a decision. Who is he going to use it on? He needs to make the decision soon. He's on 10% health. Jamili's trying to support, but now they're both caught into a Cap Totem stun. Smexen is just laying waste with the Stormkeeper Chain Lightnings. Gorecki's forced his hand. He's going to have to use Iron Bark on himself, but he gets knocked into the open. Now there's no Iron Bark for Jamili. Astral Shift is available. You cannot use it in a stun. And Super Rejects locked Gorecki into a checkmate position with 2 targets low on health and only 1 cooldown to use, ultimately finding a kill on Jamili.
That series, that blind pick, that was just about as meta as you get right now. Like, these are the 2 compositions that I feel like have defined our last 2 tournaments, and ultimately Super Rejects, this is the comp that they're going to. This is just every time they want to play this more times than not. Thug always really has, we thought of him as this style of Warlock, and now this team is kind of gelled around that playstyle. Noble, on the other hand, we've been asking for the Outlaw. Now we have it. Is it perfect, is my question, Zico?
I wouldn't say it's perfect. I think that they did a couple of good things that game. They got some nice swaps onto Envious. In the start as well, they baited out his trinket with the blind, and then they tried to switch to him and try to take him down. And they did have a couple of moments there where they could have done that. But honestly, I would have rather seen them blind Envious after they forced his trinket in one of the later swaps in the game, and then maybe try to take down somebody else. And they ended up doing that, but they did it when the sap was the art from a Voodoo Totem, so they didn't have that full blind sap. And also, I think that they need to try to force the trinket from the DPS before they can actually do that, because Thugonomics just used his trinket and his unending resolve, and then he survived, you know. So I think if they force trinket from Envious, then maybe gouge into bash into clone on Envious and force someone's trinket and then one with the blind, they could have definitely won this game. So I don't think the comp necessarily was that bad from Noble.
Here's my expert analysis too. With the way that they were playing, you just run out from behind the pillar trying to go for that hit and run play style, and then it's just Thugonomics, beefy boy, and then you just have Stormkeeper, zap, zap, zap.
I really feel like the way you beat the Holy Priest is by overwhelming them. And I think what Noble needs to do, and you guys can disagree, but I feel like the Discipline Priest would be a lot better. You have more damage. You can also push in to get fears. And I think if he can push in and get those fears, get that additional crowd control, that's really when you can see the Outlaw Rogue and the Elemental Shaman sort of snowball out of control, where they can hit multiple targets. And it's scary at all moments, not just, you know, the few moments in the game that we saw Noble find some sort of life.
This was also the blind pick, right? So I do feel like these are 2 teams that it's not easy to actually blind pick into. Like, in both these squads are like, okay, maybe we should just go with what we're most comfortable with, which I do think is fair. But let's take a look at some of the most important moments. A very interesting game. I mean, this is almost like the new Rogue Mage matchup, these compositions. It's not the fastest play, but you get to see some really high-level action go down.
Yeah, and I mean, this is really one of those big swaps. Like here, you're playing against an undead priest. He has no trinket, and you have blind. So, I mean, just look at this one more time. We can see here, you can see Roasties is on top of Smexen right now, just shutting him down a little bit. Jamili is loading up his Ice Fury, so he's going to have a lot of damage. He's going to have full Maelstrom, so he can get that Earth Shock stun, that big Earth Shock, as well as those big Frost Shocks. So they have a lot of damage here, and they're preparing to set up that swap onto Envious, who is standing right here in the middle of the map. So now we're going to see Roasties kind of move forward there and try to set up a big switch. And this is something that the Outlaw Rogue can do very easily with the tricks of the trade. You just gouge up one of the DPS, then you stun the healer, and then here comes Lava Burst, Ice Furies, tricks of the trade, Earth Shock stun. Envious has to guarantee trinket there, and of course use his Fade ability, which makes every spell miss you. So once you have that, you have a big kill win condition now, because you still have Plunder Armor and you still have Blind, so you could easily use a gouge onto Envious, then leap over to Smexin, stun him up, and then get Smexin's trinket that way, and then you can follow up that gouge with a bash into maybe a Cyclone. So if they did that, they could definitely blind Envious and then plunder Smexin and just win the game right away. But instead, they kind of tried to go on Envious with that plunder, and of course, it wasn't a clean triple CC swap, so Envious could easily walk away from that one. And then after that, they kind of lost their kill window. They tried to do a blind setup and try to take down Thug, but Thug had everything available. So I think it's Noble. They need to work a little bit on the outlet.
Wow. I'm so glad that popped up before I said what I was going to say, because I was going to be like, okay, look, Super Rejects are probably just going to stay on their pick, but very intelligent. They see Dalaran Sewers. They say, let's get Envious in on that Retribution. Small. We know the biggest weakness of Retribution is actually being able to stick onto its target. Low mobility, high damage. This is a good scenario for it. Noble, in response, going to come in with that Warrior and Jamili as well. Gorecki's still going to be that hero. Wait, it's Rubcub on the Warrior.
Yeah.
I had no idea Rubcub had a Warrior.
Me neither.
This is why this is why Gorecki is such an interesting pick. We are seeing Noble do some really interesting things here. Rubcub has been one of the most impressive players to me this season. The fact that he has been able to multi-class. Also, it is very, very difficult to give up the level of control to have a second healer on your roster. Rubcub is cool with it. He's playing with Gorecki now. Now they're both picking up DPS. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see this Thunder Zico.
Absolutely. And this is a question that I had for Noble yesterday when they played against Method Orange. Thunder is a really good answer for Windwalker DK. Ended up going with the Outlaw Ellie Druid and barely winning that game, but they do have the Thunder available, and I think the Thunder is a good matchup here because when the Ret has nobody else to hit other than the Warrior, it's actually in the favor of the Warrior because of that single target pressure and that Mortal Strike effect. Rets typically like to cleave everybody, so if there's a Priest or something like that and you can kind of stack everybody up, then the Ret is going to be doing tons of damage. But here, it's a Resto Druid. You can't really reach him that easily. And an Ellie Shaman, you can't reach him that easily. And Ellie is a good counter to Red as well. So Noble definitely has the advantage here, and especially if the game goes long as well. So
it's annoying for Thug too. I mean, that's the thing. Going into this one, he's not really going to be able to just have those free reign of fires the way that you would, because Jamili's going to be able to spread things out. He's going to most likely play those beefy boys, and we know how easy it is to break line of sight here and actually be disruptive, Venriki.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually seen this matchup before. Method Orange picked Thunder as a counter pick to what Super Rejects has here available. I do think, though, that Super Rejects can win this matchup. I think because it's a small map, if Envious can charge and get that pressure onto Gorecki, that Resto Druid, they can really ride some momentum from start to finish, but it is going to be difficult.
Well, it looks like Twitch chat likes this new pick. 69% of you think Noble's going to be able to take this second game. Will they be able to tie it up like you guys think, or will Super Rejects be able to make it happen on Dalaran Sewers?
I know Rubcub was actually practicing Warrior yesterday on stream with Gorecki, so I'm not sure if this is literally a one-day pickup or it's something they've been building in the long run. We have to see how well Rubcub can perform on this Warrior role. We know him more historically for Holy Paladin, so this is definitely going to be a treat. Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting. Jamili already trinketing out of that Hammer of Justice. Nice pressure coming in from Super Rejects very early on. See Astral Shift as well, so Super Rejects managing to find some damage here. Rubcub trying to reconnect to his target, get some pressure over onto Envious. I think he's in battle stance right now. He's going to be switching over into D stance as he has been taking a little bit of pressure. Gorecki having to play catch up at this point of the game, but both Envious and Thugonomics going to be rotting down.
Yep, Envious with Crusade currently rolling, so his damage is currently maximum capacity right now. He's got a couple more seconds of it. Maybe they can burst down Jamili. Gorecki tries to deflect with an Iron Bark, but that's 2 Chaos Bolts and a ton of damage to follow it up. Jamili trying to duck down below in line of sight. Thugonomics, Envious not going to be chasing after him. Immediately going back to the Warrior, but Rubcub does not want to leave that open. He's just going to leap away, denying the further burst from Thugonomics. Another Chaos Bolt being lined up. Spell Reflect from Rubcub. A second too late, though. Chaos Bolt does connect. Rubcub is dangerously low. Gorecki trying to pick him back up. Surprisingly, Envious and Thugonomics have decent pressure. I was expecting this to be actually a bit more one-sided for Noble.
I think it's just because of the smaller map, and that's why it was an intelligent pick there by Super Rejects, knowing Envious can land onto at least one target. And what's really scary for Gorecki is that at any moment in this game, we know Cole likes to play super aggressive. He can go all in with those offensive purges if they do manage to find that sort of pressure. Thugonomics now trying to land a Chaos Bolt over onto Rubcub, gets interrupted. Hammer of Justice actually gets trinketed. That was a nice spell lock on a Gorecki and the Hammer of Justice on Rubcub, so that was good coordination there by Super Rejects.
Definitely Thugonomics trying to kite Rubcub behind the waterfall and out of line of sight of Gurecki, but the one advantage of being a healer and then switching to the DPS role is that you know what you hate from your DPS player. So if Rubcub just kept running behind the waterfall and line of sight of Gurecki, he can recognize immediately, hey, I'm leaving my healer behind. I can't do that. That's a bad decision. And that's an advantage he's going to have as a healer switching to the DPS role. I would say potentially where he may be lacking is execute power. That's kind of a cheeky play off him being a warrior, but usually a healer switching to DPS, they might not be the playmaker. They might not know the best way to navigate to a kill, but luckily they've got Jamili on their team to try and round that out. And of course, Thundercleave is a very defensive-oriented comp. We can see Rubcub just immediately retreating away as they are just looking to negate Envious's Crusade. Rubcub now charging back in on the Thugonomics. Colo making a smart move. Whenever Noble retreats away like that as 3 players, he should drink and retain full mana. I feel like the win condition for Super Rejects is a deep dampening game with Spam Purge on the Warrior with Gurecki as Rubcub is already dangerously low. A trinket into another stun could not be enough. Ironbark from Gurecki with the die by the sword will. If this moment happens in dampening again, Rubcub gets deleted.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. If Super Rejects can play this cool, Colo can have enough mana for that all-in purge strategy. It's going to be very deadly for Gurecki to deal with. No Ironbark available, no die by the sword available for Rubcub, so this is such a scary moment for Noble. I mean, this composition theoretically should give them a huge advantage, but it just seems like they don't know exactly which strategy they should be implementing to actually find their win condition. And, you know, Super Rejects, you know, this is a composition they've played so often. They know what they need to do to win.
All right, Thugonomics trinketing out, looking for a Chaos Bolt off back of that Hex. It's going right for Jamili. Half his health gone instantly, jumping back down below line of sight. He will be able to top off. Colo doing a good job maintaining his mana on parity with Gurecki. It's going to be difficult to do as a Shaman versus a Druid. He needs to keep his eye on that. Another spell lock landed onto Gurecki. These spell locks are the game-winning plays from Thugonomics. Gurecki blinks in to stun up Thugonomics, denying the Chaos Bolt. Envious trying to punish with a swap over to him, but immediately retreats back away. Envious forced to attack the Warrior. This is exactly what Rubcub wants. He can put Rend on 3 players, Mortal Strike onto 2. He can do maximum damage while basically taking no damage on his own team. This is perfect positioning for Noble right now.
Yeah, Rubcub with a nice triple fear as well. Thugonomics using that unending resolve, looking for the Chaos Bolt. Nice Nocto by Jamil is going to send him flying away, and he's going to lose that opportunity to get off that damage. And like you said, them being grouped up behind the boxes isn't ideal. Rubcub's going to be able to get out good cleave damage. Jamili's going to be able to get out those Earthquakes as well. Thugonomics once again looking for the Bolt, and it's going to really be up to Rubcub and Jamili to be super disruptive on the Thugonomics. And like we saw, Gurecki as well, he's willing to displace in and get those bashes. There's a Hodge over onto Rubcub. Ironbark actually going to be committed to Rubcub in this situation. Thugonomics using that Chaos Bolt onto Jamili. And one interesting thing about Thugonomics is he actually uses focused Chaos Bolt, so sometimes you won't actually know who he's casting on. It can really confuse his opponent. So that's one thing he does that's very intelligent.
All right, Thugonomics looking to try and bait some interrupts. He baits the pummel on a Fear and then lands a Chaos Bolt onto Jamili, but Jamili actually made an aggressive push here and landed a full Hex onto Colo, crowd controlling the healer and allowing them to build some momentum on Envious and Thugonomics. This is the first time in the game really where Noble have momentum. I'm curious to see how Colo wants to deflect this. He has a lot in his arsenal. He doesn't even need to use it. He's just going to be greedy and hold on to it. Envious getting knocked away on the Crusade. That's not going to be a feels-good moment for Envious at all. He's going to be losing a ton of damage as a result of that Thunderstorm.
Yeah, definitely feels bad, man, on that for the Ret Pally. But you can see all Noble wants to do right now is stall it out. They don't want to allow Envious to build up any sort of pressure and momentum. Rubcub's going to be charging in again. It gets deflected by the Earthen Shield Totem. Thugonomics going to be taking a little bit of damage. That's the Unending Resolve and the Earthen Shield Totem coming in from Super Reject. So maybe an opportunity here for Noble, but a big Chaos Bolt being cast out onto Rubcub. He fakes out the Spell Reflect, manages to land the second one. Nice Hex from Jamili. I actually think it was a reflected Hex on a Colo, so nice job by Rubcub, I should say. Dampening now at around 5%. Colo 100% mana, Gurecki a little bit behind. And I think what Super Rejects is doing, like we said, very intelligent. If they can stall out the game, eventually the damage will be significant enough with the offensive purges that Gurecki will eventually fall behind.
Yeah, they need dampening to kill the Warrior through defensive stance, and they can purge off the Resto Druid heal over time effects, and that's basically the win condition. The Elemental Shaman is too slippery. The Resto Druid is a little bit too slippery as well. It's too difficult to punish them, but the Warrior, he's an open target, so if they can set up on him, he's currently in battle stance. Envious may want to push out the pillar. Maybe they're just going to wait for Crusade. I mean, the next push could even be a game-winning one, or one where they get died by the sword. If they can get died by the sword from Rubkub within maybe the next minute to a minute and a half, they can win the game a minute and a half further from that point. So right now they're just focusing a lot on Jamili, which I feel is a bit of a mistake unless they're trying to bait an Ironbark. Colo caught into a fear at the moment, but sanctuaried out immediately by Envious. Both teams just so durable with this utility and support on either side. The Elemental Shaman bringing a lot of off-healing, the Ret Paladin bringing stun and fear breaks. We see Rubkub trying to get something going here on Thugonomics. Sharpened Blade activated, bursting him down to about half HP. Unending Resolve was traded out for Thugonomics, so he may need to be careful moving forward as dampening begins to mount.
Yeah, Colo, 100% mana still. Noble struggling to find that win condition. I don't actually think they're going to win the game if it goes on too late. Crusade's going to be stacking up by Envious. Rubkub just leaps away once again. Noble does not want to mess with super rejects when they have those offensive cooldowns available, and Envious seems to be happy, I suppose, with this. He's not going to be charging in, not going to be getting overly aggressive, not giving up that positional advantage. He knows if the game goes on late enough, Goreki's really going to struggle. Hammer of Justice onto Rubkub. Thugonomics looking for the Chaos Bolt, but a nice wind shear there from Jamili. Rubkub's still getting low. Chaos Bolt's going to deflect Jamili as well, forcing him to retreat behind the pillar.
Yeah, they really needed to at least get an Ironbark from that Hammer of Justice on Rubkub, but they don't find that either, which means they're not really creating openings for themselves as we move deeper into dampening, and the instant cast damage from the Shaman and Warrior is going to be much more effective on the Ret Paladin than the Destruction Warlocks will be onto them. So I'm curious, Envious getting knocked away by Jamili again, just completely taking advantage of the map. Thugonomics looking for a Chaos Bolt, trying to fake cast the interrupts. Colo with a well-placed Earthen Shield Totem is protecting both players though, so Thugonomics should be able to just turret up here on the corner, trying to line of sight and drag Rubkub into a bad position. Chaos Bolt's flying, Spell Reflect, well-timed there by Rubkub. Straight back to Thugonomics. A Spell Lock was landed onto Goreki. They could develop some momentum off the back of this. Blood Elf Silence onto Jamili, trying to hold him in place, prevent a gust of wind. Not really going to be capitalized on too much damage though. Thugonomics just spamming fear. Envious retreating away. They really do need that Crusade damage from Envious, I think, to penetrate through the defenses of Rubkub.
Well, what ends up happening when you're playing against a Destro Warlock is at 50% dampening, getting someone to 50% health with one Chaos Bolt ends up being pretty much you can't recover from that situation. So Thugonomics' team, they're playing intelligent. They know if they can just stall this out, eventually they'll get a Chaos Bolt off, and Goreki's going to really struggle to heal through that pressure. And if they do end up retreating behind the pillar, that's when Envious can get off all that cleave damage with the Crusade, and I don't know, it's going to be such a scary moment, especially if Envious still has the Bubble, the Blessing of Protection, they have Spirit Link, they have Astral Shift, they have all these sort of all-in abilities. Super Rejects is going to be able to find a huge amount of pressure.
Yeah, that's true. If Envious and Colo can maintain maximum mana and all their defensive cooldowns, they might be able to just steamroll onto the pillar where Goreki is standing and just push them down. See Envious with Crusade currently active, and at 26% dampening, it's a lot more devastating. Rubkub forced to heroic leap away, and this is the push that I was waiting for deeper into dampening. They've stacked up for Envious. He's going to be doing a ton of damage, but he's going to get counter-pressured equally at the same time. It's a race to the finish here as dampening starts to mount higher and higher. Rubkub's still the primary target, is reluctantly not trading out any major defensive cooldowns for this assault. This is not looking too good for Envious. He really needed to get an Ironbark or a die by the sword with this Crusade. They're not finding it. Luckily, though, Colo didn't spend too much mana purging in this attempt. Rubkub's still the primary target moving forward, though.
Yeah, I actually don't think this is the moment that Super Rejects needs to pick. I think you wait till 50% dampening when it becomes even more difficult for Noble to deal with. So I like the fact that Colo didn't go all in at that point. I think Noble was going to be fine with the way they were positioned and how they were handling it. There's a nice defensive fear coming in from Rubkub. Once again, Rubkub not able to push in, not able to find the damage. Thugonomics going to be able to play Goalkeeper, spamming out Chaos Bolts and what have you. Battle Stance going to be activated for Rubkub as he looks for some damage on the Thugonomics.
Incinerates.
Yeah, Incinerates. All those different spells that the Destro Warlock has. That's the Unending Resolve and the Earthen Shield Totem. This could be a moment for Noble to push in and actually find some more pressure on a Thugonomics, but they're choosing not to. They just want to pull back.
I mean, Rubkub's now finally charging forward. Jamili's got a Stormkeeper lined up, tossing out some lightning bolts towards Envious. Hammer of Justice on Rubkub. Maybe trying to bait a Dispel from Goreki. He finally has to use Ironbark. Okay, now we're getting at a point where Rubkub could be isolated. The next attempt could be die by the sword, and after that, really nothing. Envious just needs to hold on to his Divine Shield. Nice Cyclone at low HP, denying the Crusade from building up any further. And keeping him at low health. Colo's going to have to time some heals out of that. He's not finding them just yet. His dampening is at 36%. I think this is when we need to start taking our bets on dampening. I think I'm leaning at 55%.
55%? I think that's a solid choice.
Boy, though.
I think it's a solid choice. Jamili's going to get interrupted. Gorecki now activating his artifact, wants to top off Rubcub and Jamili as they look to be making an offensive push here. The Crusade's going to be activated for Envious, looking for a lot of damage onto Rubcub. And the thing about the Warrior is, although they're very tanky, it's also difficult for them to get away. So those all-ins from Super Rejects could easily just be on Rubcub later on in the game. We don't know if Rubcub has the most experience, so it's going to be really up to him to see how he handles that kind of pressure.
Oh, and it's happening right now. How's Rubcub going to deal with it with dampening now at 40%? Just opting to retreat away, but Envious is all over him. There's a lot of damage. Spell Reflect, Die by the Sword, finally forced from Rubcub. And as we get deeper into dampening, that cooldown is not going to be available for it. Thuganomics trying to set up a swap, though, with the Chaos Bolt. Gets bashed away by Gorecki, but now potentially get feared. Thuganomics getting stunned on the Trinket. Rubcub trying to protect his healer, but Chaos Bolts are flying. Rubcub leaps out of line of sight. Nice knockback on Thuganomics. Rubcub and Jamili both dangerously low. Envious all on top of Jamili. Rubcub trying to move forward to snare him, trying to slow down the pressure, but getting a Hammer of Justice. We're moving deeper into dampening. It's become more difficult. Colo saved all of his mana for this moment. He's still got half of it left in the tank. He's going to match up and take him down. Super Rejects now leading the series 2-0.
And that's what happens. I mean, Noble played a composition maybe they didn't have the most experience on, and Super Rejects, they looked like they had a game plan. They stuck to it perfectly. They didn't overextend at any moment until they knew they could close out the game. And although it was a very stalled out game, I mean, they managed to take out that win.
Eat that chunky bolt. That's what happens when you wait too long against the Destro Lock. I do want to say there were kind of, at the beginning of the game, I feel like Thuganomics wasn't shut down at all, which just allowed him to pressure a decent amount, which made it so that Thunder really couldn't get that much going. And then it put them in this position where they could just extend it to the late game and just wait to get to that deep level of dampening, Zico. I will say, though, Super Rejects, once they got to that place where those Chaos Bolts were really scary, Jamili just came in clutch so many times, actually did get those thunderstorms at key moments. Also, we did see Gorecki being an absolute goat with those bashes, but not too many off Storm Bolts, things like that. So ultimately, Thuganomics going to be able to get the best of them.
Absolutely. I think Thuganomics had a really good showing in this game. He really played around the Spell Reflect and the Dispels very, very intelligently. He was doing those focus Chaos Bolts onto Jamili and then baiting out the Reflect from Rubcub at the same time because he was targeting Rubcub and things like that. So Thuganomics had a great showing. And I think the main issue that I saw here from the Thunder was that they didn't push in. Once you forced the Earthen Totem and the Lock Wall, just push in. Your pressure is more scary than their pressure, especially certain times in this game. Jamil did a phenomenal job knocking away Envious on his Crusade. There's no threat anymore. You can just stick on that Warlock or on that Red Paladin, and you can really get some pressure going. So I feel like that was the big mistake. They kind of just went in, forced something, and then they stayed back. And then Thuganomics, of course, got his cooldowns back very quickly, so they never really found an opening like that where they could kind of overwhelm, Super Rejects with their pressure.
I think Jamili was, although obviously doesn't work out for Jamili, Jamili was an MVP in that matchup in a lot of ways, being super disruptive. But guys, we're going to be going to a quick break. The question is, when we return, are the Super Rejects going to be able to bolt their way to victory? Do you like big, beefy Chaos Bolts? You came to the right place. We see Super Rejects currently leading by 2 against Noble. Noble, a squad that in this tournament has had to overcome just about everything that has taken them out of tournaments in the past. They deal with Method Orange handily. They finally managed to take down some Ferals, which has given them problems in the past, but now they are just getting smacked in the face by the most chaotic of Chaos Bolts, and now Noble deciding to change their composition. Zico, do we think that this is the answer to Thugonomics and Envious for Super Rejects?
I'm not sure. I feel like Noble, they're kind of just testing the waters at this point. It feels like they had the plan to play the Outlaw Ellie. It didn't work out. Now, then they tried the Thunder, and now they're trying their main comp, essentially, which is the Fire Mage Assassination Rogue. I don't think it's a terrible matchup. They could kill the Red Paladin, but we'll have to see.
They have to do it here as well. Backs against the wall. If they lose, they are out of the tournament, and Super Rejects guarantee themselves that top 3rd placing.
Yeah, Noble going back to the composition that they did so phenomenally with in the spring finals earlier this year. Let's see if it can perform here against the Super Rejects. Sap on Envious, Hammer Justice onto Colo. I believe maybe Imp is being played from Thugonomics, and he was able to dispel it. Yes, he is playing Imp, so that's a nice adaptation for Thugonomics. He can preemptively remove crowd control from his healer. We see a blind immediate trinket from Colo. Good exchange of cooldown so far from Super Rejects, and Jamili is falling behind as a result of a fear on Rubcub. Rubcub does ultimately, though, reconnect with the Avenging Crusader, leading the charge. A full poly gets instantly dispelled, and this is going to be so annoying for Jamili to deal with that Imp from Thugonomics.
Yeah, kidney shot on Thugonomics with the spell lock on Colo into a DR polymorph. Some pressure here for Noble. That's going to force out the unending resolve. Hammer of Justice on Cole as well. That gets sanked out by Envious. So good job by Envious with that Retribution Paladin utility. Jamili's going to be taking a little bit of damage in the meantime. Rossi's looking like he wants to retreat over to Rubcub. I'm not sure why.
The Imp is over there, I think. It's
okay.
hiding under the gateway. It's a small Imp. Jamili under fire, though, with good cross CC from Super Rejects. This could be the Cauterize with the full fear secured. Rubcub with a sacrifice will redirect the damage and deny it. Roasty's now dipping low as Envious switches his attention over to him. Jamili setting up a defensive Ring of Frost there, looking for a polymorph, maybe trying to bait the Dispel preemptively, but that Imp Dispel is still available for Thugonomics. Even if Jamili lands this polymorph, they're going to need a little bit more than just one poly. And it looks like he might be able to get... There's Hammer of Justice. Doesn't look like they want to use the Imp. They do use the Imp Dispel on that, which means Jamili can sneak in a polymorph for a couple of seconds, but he needs to get it quick. The longer that it takes, the further he's going to be falling behind, but they're just not able to find it. There's too much denial from the team of the Super Rejects. He blinks in. He lands the poly. Good cross CC. Thugonomics finally isolated, but Jamili's the one taking the damage. He could easily be forced into that Cauterize range. This is match point for Noble. Ice Block has been forced, and the Super Rejects are dominating with this Demon specialization from Thugonomics with the Imp, just dispelling all the crowd control from the Mage and denying any openings from Noble.
Yeah, the problem is Rubcub just has no healing outside of that Avenging Crusader. Once that fades, it's so easy for Super Rejects to find the damage on Jamili and Roasties and force them in a defensive position. As this composition, Fire Mage, Holy Pally, Assassination Rogue, you want to be overwhelming your opponents with crowd control. Looks like they're going to be pushing in, trying to find some CC over on Nicolo right now. Roasties getting a little bit of damage on Nicolo. Maybe they're opting to change up their target here, but Earthen Shield Totem's dropped on that kidney shot. Sacrifice hits used. Thugonomics casting out a Chaos Bolt that forces out the Cloak of Shadows, and immediately Noble forced defensive once again.
Yeah, I mean, unless they can kill the Imp, I'm not sure if they're going to really be able to ever land crowd control. There's a polymorph finally secured onto Colo with a nice counterspell onto Thugonomics. They have to 100-0 him, but there's really not enough damage to get too much going. I'm surprised to not see Vendetta used during that attempt. They do manage to finally pull on any result, but that was an aggressive one to look for a fear on Rubcub. Unfortunately, it breaks. Now they're swapping to Colo. I think this is a better decision with the Imp to go after the healer. They get an Astral Shift. Colo's been playing in the middle of the map basically the whole game, so this is a nice opportunity for them to punish, but in the meantime, Rubcub had to trade out Divine Shield, and Noble fall even further behind.
Yeah, Colo's going to be able to top himself off. Polymorph on Envious. Jamili's doing everything he can defensive at this point. Chaos Bolt's going to connect, but he should be okay. No bubble, no trinket available for Rubcub. Here's a Chaos Bolt. What are they going to do to deal with it? Rossi's able to survive using the evasion as well. Rossi's has no defensive cooldowns. Everyone from Noble is super vulnerable at this point in the game. Envious, you can see, he has that Avenging Crusader ready to go at this point. So it's going to be scary if he decides to push in and get that hammer just on a Rubcub. Rubcub trinketing out. They want to get aggressive. Kidney shot over on a Colo. Earthen Shield Totem going to be committed to slow down some of that damage. And I think with that, Colo's going to be completely fine.
I mean, they have a Rep Paladin that can remove stuns. They have an Imp that can remove everything basically on the team of Noble. There's no way they can get Colo locked down long enough to find a kill. And the more time they spend in the open, there's a Chaos Bolt being casted. So this is not looking too good for Noble. Rubcub is running out of mana. I think they're running out of time. Now they can even swap to Rubcub at the end of this Avenging Crusader. A counterspell landed on a Colo. Maybe they can make a swap to him, but Thugonomics peels with a double Mortal Coil into a full Hammer of Justice. Chaos Bolt connects. Rubcub, he has the trinket, but he's choosing not to use it.
Goodbye.
And he's just going to go down. This means Noble will be going home, in my estimation, for them taking the tournament completely torn to shreds.
Yep.
Good try, though.
I tried my best.
That was